The Cloud Foundry Foundation is our sponsor here for our podcast from the Cloud Foundry Summit in Santa Clara, California. Our discussion, the path emerging as organizations move beyond the confusion of disruption and take the journey to transformation. We'll explore the new concepts of multi-cloud and how it relates to open source app development and management at scale. Cloud Foundry gives companies the speed, simplicity, and control they need to develop and deploy applications faster and easier. Learn more about Cloud Foundry at cloudfoundry.org.
Well, I'm Kyle MacDonald with the New Stack here at the Cloud Foundry Summit in Santa Clara, California. And I'm joined by my esteemed buddy Lee here.
Hey, Lee Calcote with the New Stack. Good to be here.
And today we're talking to
Sarah Cooper. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at M2MI, Machine-to-Machine Intelligence.
All right. So prior to the start of this, we've been having some conversations about the Internet of Things and all of the things. And I thought I would just start with maybe give us a little bit of a background, right? As our audience is primarily developers. This is IoT is clearly an area that's coming up soon. What is IoT? What should they know? If you're a developer right now, what are the things you should care about?
If I step on the soapbox, care about security.
Okay.
So the Internet of Things is the connection of a lot of objects, computing devices, to the Internet, where their main functions have always been operational. So we've got customers in agribusiness who have sensors out in fields. We have customers in oil and gas with sensors along pipelines and building and facilities management stuff. We've all heard of wearables, but really there's a bunch of devices in the world that measure that world and provide us with control that thus have required somebody to go and interact with that device. So by connecting them to the Internet, and I'm doing air quotes, because often it's not going through the public Internet, it's through a private network. But by connecting those together, we can grab that and aggregate that real-time information and actually do analytics on it. Instead of just knowing if it's green, red, yellow, we can actually combine the information and know more about what's happening in the world and what that means for our decisions. So
tell us a little bit about your company and what you do, and then let's go from there.
Sure. So M2MI has been around this area forever, in IoT terms, forever, for the past decade, and I've been there for 9 years. So kind of an old lady in IoT. But the product that we have is a middleware product. It's a software stack that is composable. So it's composed of 7 different modules. It's got a connection management component, a device management component, and a cybersecurity piece, all of which make up the infrastructure or control plane of IoT. And then it's got the data plane components, which are the data handler, which is how you get all the information and parse it into records. And then an InStream Analytics component, so you know basically what's happening on those devices, a privacy module, and then finally a business center. So that's a lot of modules that can be mixed and matched because not all customers are coming to the Internet of Things with the same skills or the same maturity.
Or the same sensors, or the same use cases.
Oh, absolutely.
Wearables, sort of one spectrum, wearables, and on the other end, agriculture. And can you talk about some of those use cases and customers and how they've shaped your platform over the last 9 years?
Absolutely. So to your point to developers, a lot of developers sitting in Silicon Valley think, well, I've got a device or I've got an app and I need a device. And so there's a one-to-one sort of initial start place for most device manufacturers and the folks who write applications for those devices. Very quickly, the world has exploded in the number of devices, and we all want them to work together. So rather than having each smart device in your home screaming at you with its own app telling you, oh, the door opened, oh, the door shut, oh, the door opened again. What you'd really like is the house to just know that the door needs to be closed and close it, and maybe make an adjustment to some energy app because the door was open. Much of the intelligence should be sort of an ambient intelligence in the ecosystem play. So in farms, for instance, again, if you've got 500 vendors and 10,000 sensors, you don't want an app for each one. So it becomes a many-to-many problem instead of a one-to-one. And that changes the way you think about how data moves, where you make decisions, the costs of making those decisions. But even the wearables world, if you've got a fitness tracker and you've got, a medical device and you've got glasses and you've got, whatever your body area network is composed of, you'd rather they work together and give you an integrated viewpoint of what's going on in your body instead of 7 apps.
Wow. Okay. It's a whole brave new world here.
It is a big world out there. Absolutely.
You guys host your platform as a SaaS offering, or is this?
We do. About 2 years ago, we were selling on-premise mainly, which is challenging for a small company because of the sort of deal cycle. But it was also, we noticed that as customers, as we went and grabbed a bunch of different customers, their IT sophistication was fairly low. IoT is a bit of a long tail of customers. So farmers don't have large, some of them do, many of them don't have large IT departments. So that means an on-premise deployment required them to scale up and skill up to be able to manage that. So a SaaS solution removes, it's one why Cloud Foundry is such a great platform for us. It removes a lot of the management layers so that a customer can really come in and drive value very quickly. SaaS also meant that we had to build out all of the components of the product. You can't go sell point solutions with SaaS, don't make much sense. You need a full product offering.
So SaaS is beautiful in a number of ways, just customer enabling, like you said. But speaking of kind of the components that comprise your platform, I don't know how much you can sort of peel back the onion there, if you can, but just some of the technologies that come into play for you as you deliver InStream analysis, or some of the device management and the updating of firmware or other other capabilities. What does that look like for you guys in your platform?
So we have a couple of foundational technologies that allow us to kind of do the mix and match, relatively low cost, both from a performance and from a scale side. So we have our own transaction engine, which is super lightweight. We also have something called the Lockbox, which is a security technology that allows us to monitor and meter each kind of bite-sized piece of code. So when we do InStream Analytics, as a good example, our user interface, which is really just a skin over a set of services and APIs, allow you to drag and drop different operation modules. So you can do a unit conversion to make sure you've got, comparing apples to apples, and then do a moving average, and then maybe if it's over a threshold, you want to send a text to the field service tech and also notify the database. And all of that is just by dragging and dropping modules and, filling out little, drop-down menu items. If you make it any more complex than that, it requires an IT department, which again, many of these customers don't have. So that lightweight transaction engine allows us to do that quickly and fast. On the security side, we can interject control points at each one of those modules. So we can interject something that says, hey, if it's raining outside, then, don't allow the field service tech to go over, 100 miles an hour on the tarmac. It's probably a bad call, even in good weather, but, that type of control point is something that takes advantage of another piece of what we have, which is this context builder. It's very hard to make decisions in real time unless you have the context around you. Is 5 good or is it bad? Well, it depends on whether it's the temperature of, outdoors, or whether it's the temperature of a refrigerator, or Celsius or Fahrenheit. So a lot of that context has to come into these decisions. We do support a lot of open source communities, obviously Cloud Foundry being a big one. We also we're members of the MQTT technical committee. That's a message protocol. There are a bunch of other protocols and standards, which is a challenge in IoT. And we support Spark, which allows our customers to write their own analytics, but still take advantage of our builder, essentially, and to be able to leverage some of the pre-built components that we already have.
So if they do write some, mini batch jobs to be run in Spark, do those things get executed in your platform in a Spark that you run?
So it depends. Good question. It can. You can interject it into the flow chain, or you can point the flow chain, which is what we call our InStream Analytics components, to send information to another analytics package. So it's one of the ways that we verticalize the platform. The platform is horizontal, but we do, just speaking with GE on aviation and the airport ecosystem. And they have, as does Oracle, have data models that help you decide whether you hold a plane for that late bag or not, for instance. We send information about where that bag is and where the plane is. Then, their data models and analytics which are much more specific to the aviation environment, can provide the feedback of, oh yeah, wait a minute, that's a very expensive, frequent flyer. We don't want to lose them. Let's hold the plane. It's worth it for that customer. In which case, they can either send instructions back down to us, and we'll do that, or it may terminate at the analytics package.
Kyle, I'm figuring out that we need to figure out how to get into like the premier membership for M2MI so we can get some.
I was just thinking that could be very beneficial. I like this internet thing. This is going to be great.
It is. Well, and that's actually why it's always got to start with security, because at some point, if you want to up your frequent flyer, status so that your bag always makes it, it's a relatively easy hack.
How secure are the kind of endpoints, right? So you talked a lot about sensors. I mean, is there enough logic on those sensors and wearables and devices and things?
So it depends on the endpoint. The airport's an excellent example of a mixed trust system, as we call it. So there are devices that consumers bring on that have into the airport, that have very limited resources, in which case, really the only way to secure or to manage their behavior is to verify. If the bag says that it's sitting next to this proximity sensor, is it registered on that proximity sensor? If 4 light bulbs say that they all went out, what's the energy pull into the building's energy management system? If they still look like they're lit up, then probably, that's not an accurate reading. So there's a lot of cross-verification that can happen when you have, again, that context of the system. You know that 4 light bulbs are next to each other, for instance, and they're in a specific room. But there are a huge number of lax security, within even very sophisticated devices. There was a case in the UK of 53 million smart meters, all provisioned with the same decryption key. So that would be like having your house, your entire block of houses, all use the same key. Once somebody's got it, they've got access to everything. And that's a very simple example.
I got to imagine, just as a SaaS platform, that you've got, like you've been going through a number of different examples of how people are bringing their IoT use cases to your platform. But have any of those customers turned into partners in and amongst themselves and kind of use your platform to as a bridge to bring their offerings together?
Absolutely. Anytime we hit an ecosystem play, so the airport's another, going back to my favorite example since we're just talking about it. We got into the space because we had a couple of device vendors who came to us to use our connection management and device management capabilities. And we're looking and saying, hey, we've got some footprint in the airport. We've got the guys who are tracking those LD3 baggage carts. And we've got some folks that have the drop-in bag, controller. And we've got some folks that can tell you how fast the ramp is moving. I wonder who else is interested in airports. Well, it turns out GE Aviation is very interested in airports. And so started talking to them. And then Oracle has, a lot of the frequent flyer information. And that's kind of what was the genesis behind the Industrial Internet Consortium testbed that we've recently done together. We see that in agribusiness as well. Customer.
Tell me about this test bed. That sounds great.
It is great. So the Industrial Internet Consortium has a number of test beds for different industries focused on different areas of challenge for truly industrial deployments. In ecosystems, it tends to be about sharing securely information while still maintaining control and ownership of that information. So, for instance, if the airline wants to charge you an extra $25 to take your bag to your Uber, so bypass the carousel and just deliver, directly to Uber, which would be kind of nice.
That sounds great.
Right? They've actually got to coordinate with about 3, 4, 5, depending on the airport, operation components. So there's the baggage handlers, there's the baggage guys, there's the front desk staff who are checking in the bag, which is often a contract agency. There's the guys who are unloading the bags, and then there's whoever going to deliver it. There are people on the tarmac who have catering trucks and so forth. It's amazing how much comes into just how many different players come in to delivering that bag. So we've taken the M2MI system as well as the GE Predix environment and Oracle's aviation data model and combined information across the airport to be able to, again, figure out whose bag is whom. What kind of a flight experience have you had? If you've got 7 kids and they've been on a plane for 7 hours, you probably just want to get home. So you might be more open to being able to sell those services too.
And so the test bed is kind of a place where everybody can get together and try those things and see how they work and interact.
Exactly. So it's basically a microservices platform where you can write apps on top of all of the information that's being gathered by the partners and presented through a standard interface. And, if we've got, just talking to a couple of folks who have some security options that they'd like to add in. So it's an open test bed.
It's really interesting. We're seeing that's a lot of collaboration for sort of the nascent early market that it is, but that level of coordination and cooperation is it seems as though we may have been learning lessons over the last couple of cycles.
I hope so. I mean, when you're at the top of the hype cycle.
Right, if we get this one wrong.
Right? And everybody's got, a huge megaphone with billions of dollars to spend on marketing. At some point, you got to deliver something. So you got to come talk to those of us who've been doing it for a long time. Because we can tell you where the bodies are buried and what not to do.
Perfect. Well, so I think we're getting close to the end of our time here. But the one last question I have. So I was a very early Sun Microsystems employee, and they brainwashed me with this belief that I would have a Java toaster someday. Am I ever going to have a Java toaster?
I bet you can buy one now. I don't know whether it's embedded Java, but there are 4 or 5 different on-the-market connected toasters. And one, I wish I could remember the article, one just basically burnt down a house, and she tried to sue the manufacturer, and they determined that she couldn't because she had set it to some ridiculous setting, and she couldn't remember having done it on her phone. I'm saying she, not because I remember it was a woman, but just for gender equality purposes.
See, that's a place where context might matter.
Exactly.
There we go.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for coming and joining us. It was great chatting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
The Cloud Foundry Foundation is our sponsor here for our podcast from the Cloud Foundry Summit in Santa Clara, California. Our discussion, the path emerging as organizations move beyond the confusion of disruption and take the journey to transformation. We'll explore the new concepts of multi-cloud and how it relates to open source app development and management at scale. Cloud Foundry gives companies the speed, simplicity, and control they need to develop and deploy applications faster and easier. Learn more about Cloud Foundry at cloudfoundry.org.